Today, let's discuss the 2023 movie The Killer of the Flower Moon. In the film, a group of individuals collectively buries a pipe in their crop's soil. After a few days, their land begins to produce an excessive amount of oil, much to their joy. Witnessing this, they anticipate reaping significant benefits. Over time, the Osage Native American people also experience newfound wealth similar to the white settlers, enabling them to reside in their area. As the years pass, a soldier named Ernest, the story's protagonist, arrives. He encounters an officer who escorts him to a house where he meets his uncle and brother. Ernest converses with his uncle, who reveals a special task, working as a sheriff in the area. When asked about his preferences, Ernest mentions a preference for younger girls. The uncle then offers him a job as a driver for a girl named Molly, a member of the wealthiest family in the region. Ernest agrees to keep an eye on her. Molly engages a private detective to investigate the deaths of several Osage people, a matter she discusses with Ernest. She wishes to uncover the truth behind their deaths, promising a substantial reward to the detective. Subsequently, Molly and Ernest interact daily during his role as her driver, engaging in extensive conversations. During a festive event, Molly and others participate, and upon their return, Molly gifts Ernest a hat. She invites him to her home where he meets his sick mother. Later that evening, over drinks and conversation, Molly inquires about Ernest's purpose and arrival in the area. Ernest admits that his uncle arranged the job as her driver, earning praise from Molly for his uncle's kindness. Their conversation continues late into the night. The following day, another festival program took place, attended by Molly's sister and her sister's husband named Bill. Bill had sisters as well. During the event, one of the sisters praised Ernest and Molly as a couple, revealing their mutual fondness for each other. Later, when they found themselves alone, Ernest proposed to Molly, asking if she would marry him. Without hesitation, she said yes. The very next day, they wed according to their own customs, both brimming with happiness. Even Molly's uncle appeared visibly saddened by the occasion. The uncle consoled Molly, assuring her that everything would be all right and that she need not worry. Unfortunately, despite his reassurance, the poor girl's health deteriorated rapidly, leading to her death within a year. Ernest visited the uncle sometime after her passing. The uncle revealed that, by rule, after Molly's sister's death, all her property would now transfer to her husband, Bill. However, if they eliminated Bill, Molly would inherit the entire estate. The uncle proposed a plan to eradicate everyone, Molly, her sisters, Bill, and his sisters, so Ernest could inherit the property. Ernest was taken aback by the suggestion but initially declined, stating he had no such intentions at present. Yet, if the situation demanded action, he agreed to participate. Meanwhile, Ernest emphasized the importance of protecting his wife, who was pregnant. His words hinted at his own dangerous nature. With Molly's sister gone, Molly devoted herself to caring for her mother. Unfortunately, their arrival seemed to exacerbate problems, resulting in increased deaths among their people. Molly was disheartened by the situation and left the gathering. Ernest sent his brother to the city with Molly's sister, hoping he could enjoy the party there. However, both Ernest and Molly were summoned to the city the following day. Upon arrival, they were confronted with Molly's sister's corpse, cruelly murdered and discarded. Witnessing the gruesome sight, Molly was overcome with grief, breaking down into tears. Ernest comforted her in her moment of distress. The subsequent day, a meeting of prominent Osage people took place. They discussed the rise in their business and the influx of a large number of white settlers, which escalated the danger. They vowed not to remain passive if any more of their people were harmed. Uncle promptly offered $2,000, eliciting joyous reactions from everyone present. Ernest found himself in the company of Molly, Bill, and Bill's sister, all mourning the loss of Molly's sister. Another death occurred, a matter the private detective informed Ernest and Molly about, suspecting Uncle's involvement. He suggested that Uncle might have married one of Molly's sisters first, then another, possibly leading to the demise of Bill's wife. Molly was deeply saddened by this revelation. Ernest, in turn, informed Uncle of the detective's suspicions, reassuring him that there was no concrete evidence against him and that he would handle the situation. Ernest comforted Molly, assuring her that he would take necessary action against those responsible. However, Molly remained distressed. Ernest stood by her, offering support. Later, they encountered the doctor who treated Molly's diabetes. The doctor pointed out that 4 years had passed without any action regarding their purpose, reminding Ernest of their conversation. Ernest expressed reluctance, stating his unwillingness to harm Molly. Uncle, enraged by this response, assaulted Ernest as a form of punishment, emphasizing that their purpose had to be fulfilled somehow. Molly, meanwhile, engaged another inspector for her work, in addition to the detective she had previously hired. She cautioned Ernest about the potential repercussions if their secrets were uncovered. Despite Uncle's expectations, Ernest's commitment to Molly remained steadfast. Ernest committed to the plan, hoping it would bring about happiness. Days passed, and Molly's private detective approached them with news of someone potentially beneficial. They discovered this person was a dangerous bomb maker involved in multiple bank robberies. Meanwhile, as Molly's doctors arrived to treat her diabetes, she abruptly dismissed Ernest when he questioned her decision. Molly's behavior turned strange, expressing distrust and predicting someone's imminent death. Enraged, Ernest left briefly but returned with Molly's insulin medications from the doctor. Molly grew increasingly agitated, claiming superior knowledge to the doctors and asserting Ernest's responsibility for household chores and caring for the children due to her illness. Despite his frustration, Ernest expressed his love and took care of her, administering the insulin injections when she calmed down and apologized. The following day, the officer who initially met Ernest fell ill and was treated by Molly's doctor. Later, Molly confided in the doctor, stating that upon her death, he would inherit her entire estate as she had no other kin. Meanwhile, Uncle approached Ernest, revealing himself as Molly's first husband and disclosing their remarriage. He pressured Ernest into agreeing to eliminate the officer. Tragically, Molly's mother fell seriously ill and, despite treatment, did not survive. The entire family was plunged into deep sorrow. Ernest and Molly paid a visit to Uncle's house, where he feigned sympathy towards Molly, claiming to have hired a man to uncover the killer. Surprisingly, Molly revealed that the private detective she had hired had also been killed. However, it was later revealed that Ernest and his brother were responsible for the detective's demise, not someone else as previously assumed. The uncle, putting on a facade of compassion, suggested Ernest hire a capable detective. Ernest agreed, and it was announced that Molly was expecting their third child, evoking immense joy among them and the uncle's family, despite the uncle's absence. Ernest met the bomb maker, discussing the creation of a significant bomb. The bomb maker boasted of his ability to craft any size bomb and asserted his extreme danger. Ernest decided to eliminate the officer first and befriended both the bomb maker and the officer. Eventually, he seized an opportunity, shooting and killing the officer. Following this, Ernest and Molly welcomed their third child, a girl, bringing immense happiness. Their extended family, including Bill and his sister, gathered to celebrate. However, tragedy struck one night when a massive explosion occurred at Bill's house, resulting in their deaths. Ernest was devastated and informed Molly, who was shattered by the loss of her remaining family members. Amidst her grief, Molly met with a few individuals, including the president of Molly, and later retired to her room, her laughter tinged with sorrow after losing everyone she held dear. The president sought help, acknowledging the ongoing bloodshed in their city and the need for a detective. Molly returned with her associates and disclosed the use of slow poison by Uncle's associates, including her doctors who had conspired against her family. This revelation enraged Ernest, accusing Uncle of attempting to harm his wife. Uncle assured Ernest that the slow poison would only cause sickness and weakness, not death, claiming a desire for Molly's wealth and prosperity. Ernest reluctantly agreed to Uncle's plan, agreeing to manage Molly's business while secretly administering the slow poison to her, camouflaged within her medicine. He continued the deception by administering the poison through Molly's insulin injections. An agent arrived at Ernest's house, sent by Molly seeking assistance. Ernest, wary of the situation, delayed the meeting, claiming Molly's illness as the reason, instructing the agent to return after a week. Unbeknownst to Ernest, the agent began investigating independently, working with colleagues to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Uncle reassured Ernest that they wouldn't be discovered, despite the FBI and other agency agents arriving and conducting their investigations. Uncle emphasized the need for secrecy, aiming to keep their activities hidden. The situation appears to be intensifying as the agents start their inquiries and the tension surrounding the deception continues to build. There were suspicions surrounding Uncle's involvement in the ongoing bloodshed, but the general consensus defended him, claiming his goodwill and affirming that his hands couldn't possibly be involved in such acts. To disprove the accusations, Uncle had even offered a reward to catch the perpetrator. However, despite the reward, no one had been apprehended yet. The FBI intensified their inquiries, questioning doctors and even sending an agent to confront Uncle directly. Uncle feigned worry and distress over the circumstances when speaking to the agent. Later, in a private conversation with Ernest, Uncle warned about the FBI's investigations and urged Ernest not to incriminate him, highlighting the consequences of his own potential incarceration. Ernest sought advice, asking Uncle for guidance on handling the situation. Uncle cautioned him against negative thoughts and encouraged Ernest to stay positive, implying that if he were to face punishment, Uncle would find a way to help him. Unbeknownst to them, the agent, sensing something amiss, began gathering information on Ernest, growing suspicious of his actions. As doubts swirled around, the agent engaged in conversations with others aiming to uncover information about Ernest's involvement within the circle of suspicion. One day, Molly's sister visited with Ernest's brother but tragically passed away the following day. Suspicion began to swirl around Ernest, especially with Molly's worsening condition due to the slow poison he had been administering to her through insulin. Despite his actions, Ernest couldn't bear to witness Molly's declining health. He wrestled with the idea of confessing the truth to the FBI. The next day, while Ernest was seated somewhere, the agent arrived and apprehended him. Ernest denied any involvement in the deaths but expressed concern for his wife's deteriorating health. Meanwhile, law enforcement detained the bomb dealer from Ernest's house, where Molly was found in critical condition. Rushed to the hospital, she received immediate care, slowly starting to recover. As the investigation continued for several days, Molly gradually regained her health. Finally, when confronted by authorities, Ernest confessed the truth, admitting to acting on his uncle's orders. Molly's recovery began following Ernest's confession. Amidst the courtroom chaos, Ernest's right to be properly questioned was initially denied, leading to anger among the attendees. Eventually, the judge allowed proper inquiry after a few days. Ernest faced pressure, being warned that divulging the truth would lead to lifelong imprisonment, a risk even his lawyer cautioned against. Despite facing threats and pressure to reveal information, Ernest remained silent, refusing to implicate anyone else. The lawyer promised to do everything to protect him, urging Ernest not to implicate Uncle's family. The court sought witnesses against Ernest in the murder case, but due to illness, there was a tragic turn, the passing of Ernest's daughter after 3 months. This devastating loss shattered Ernest, and amidst the mourning, when Molly saw him, she left in anger, deeply affected by their daughter's death. The weight of his daughter's demise seemed to break Ernest entirely. He harbored immense guilt for the deaths, knowing he had carried out the killings at Uncle's behest, including those of Molly's sister, the officer, and others. The storyline appears to have reached a point of deep sorrow and revelation where Ernest's silence and the tragic loss of his daughter weigh heavily on him. The entanglement with Uncle's actions has brought forth immense guilt and pain. Ernest eventually confesses, revealing the names of his accomplices, including his own role in the crimes. Molly witnesses this confession, leading to Ernest admitting his greed for money as the motivation behind his wrongdoings. When questioned if his love for Molly was solely driven by money, he denies it, a claim that contradicts earlier statements about his preferences. In the following days, an agent introduces Ernest to Molly. Despite Ernest's attempts to convince her of his changed ways, Molly remains skeptical. She questions him about the insulin poisoning, to which Ernest lies, prompting Molly to leave, realizing he hasn't changed. Years pass and a radio show covers the case's aftermath. Ernest and Uncle were initially sentenced to life imprisonment but were later released on parole. However, public protests led to Uncle's demise at 87. The doctors and Ernest's brother were released due to insufficient evidence. Following his punishment, Molly divorced Ernest, who married a third time but succumbed to diabetes at 50. Molly, having witnessed the tragedies in her family, was buried alongside them. The story concludes with the characters facing the consequences of their actions, showing the impact of greed, deceit, and the eventual quest for redemption and unity among the community.